Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S6 6005 Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Chapter 1 The Journey's End. Years ago, I stole a loaf of bread to feed my hungry family. I was sent to prison and sentenced to hard labor. I traded my name for a number. I was no longer Zhang Barjiang. For 19 years, I was known as number 24,601. That was a dark, lonely time for me. Now I'm old and dying. I write this for my daughter, Cosette. When she reads it, she will know the truth. I hope she can forgive me. I hope she will understand why I did not tell her everything sooner. At the time my story begins, I was the breadwinner in my sister's household. Her husband was dead, and she had 7 children. One year, the winter was very hard. I didn't have work, and we had no food. I couldn't let the children starve, so I broke the baker's window and stole a loaf of bread. I was 25 years old when I lost my freedom. In October of 1815, I was released from prison. 19 years of my life had been spent behind bars. My first taste of freedom filled me with joy. I was free to walk anywhere. The first day, I walked many miles. By nightfall, my bones ached from the cold, damp air, and I was exhausted. I stopped at the best inn in the town of Dinny. I entered and the innkeeper called. "What can I do for you, monsieur?" "I want a meal and a bed," I replied. "I have money." The few francs I had earned in prison were more than enough to pay for food and lodging. "In that case, you're welcome," said the innkeeper. I sat down and waited for my dinner. I waited and waited. The innkeeper was watching me. He had sent the boy out half an hour ago. At that very moment, the boy was at the police station finding out about me. "Will dinner be ready soon?" I finally asked. I was faint with hunger. Just then the boy returned. He handed the innkeeper a scrap of paper. The innkeeper frowned after reading it. He walked over to me. "I'm sorry, monsieur," he said. "I can't have you here." "Why?" I asked. "Would you like me to pay in advance? I have money." You may have the money," he replied, "but I don't have the room." "Then put me in the stable," I begged. I needed sleep desperately. But even the stable was too good for me. The innkeeper had found out that my name was Zhang Barjiang. He knew that I carried yellow identity papers, the passport of an ex-convict. Soon everyone in town knew who I was. No one would rent to me. No one would even give me a glass of water. I sat outside in the dark and shivered. I had no strength left. But God was watching over me that night. A kind woman stopped and told me to knock at the bishop's house. The good bishop opened his door to me. The bishop of Digny lived with his sister and a housekeeper. He was a small man of about 75. He lived a quiet, simple life. He had very little, for he gave all his money to the poor. I told the bishop I was a convict and explained why. I showed him my yellow passport. "See," I said, "it says I'm a dangerous man. I was given 5 years for robbery and 14 more for trying to escape 4 times." I waited for the bishop to tell me to leave. Instead, he invited me to sit at his table. The good silver was laid out. 2 silver candlesticks graced the table. "This isn't my house, but Christ," he told me. "You're hungry and thirsty, so you're welcome. Everything in my house is yours." I had never known anyone so generous. What kind of man was this? How could he open his home to me so freely? It scared me. Maybe that's why I did what I did. I tossed and turned that night. I hadn't slept in a bed for years. At 2 in the morning, I was wide awake. I had one thought on my mind, the bishop's silver. It took me an hour to decide, but in the end, I did it. I took my shoes off, tiptoed to the cupboard, and stole the bishop's silver. It was a foolish thing to do. The police caught me by dawn. They brought me back to the bishop's house. He spoke before I could say a word. I'm delighted to see you again, he said. You forgot to take the silver candlesticks with you when you left. I wanted it. I wanted you to have them as well. I wanted it. I wanted you to have them as well. They are worth a good 200 francs. I was stunned. This godly man was forgiving my crime, and he was also giving me his only valuable possession, his precious silver. It was too much for me. I couldn't believe what was happening. The police left. The bishop looked at me and said, I have bought your soul for God. Promise me you will use the money from this silver to become an honest man. I was confused when I left the bishop. I wandered the countryside in a daze. I didn't know where I was going, nor did I care. Memories of my years in prison flooded my mind. Suddenly, I was angry. God had given me such a hard life. A boy came walking toward me on the footpath. He was flipping a coin. The coin dropped in the dirt just as he passed me. I stamped my foot on it. Monsieur, my franc, it's under your foot, the boy pleaded. I screamed at him to get lost. The look of terror in his eyes was like a wild animal's. I yelled again and the boy bolted. I did all this without thinking. Then suddenly I saw what I had done. I was a monster. I had stolen from a child. I broke down and wept. I prayed for forgiveness. I tried to find the boy to make things right, but he was gone. Oddly, my anger was also gone. The bishop's love had cast it out. I was a changed man. I was truly free for the first time in my life. I have never committed another crime. Chapter 2. Monsieur Madeleine. I sold most of the silver to set myself up, but I kept the candlesticks to remind me that I was a new man. I moved to Montreuil-sur-Mer. I arrived the night of the town hall fire. The police chief's two children were in the fire. I rescued them. In the excitement, no one asked to see my identity papers. I changed my name to the Madeleine and began a new life. In 3 short years, I was rich. It happened like this. The city of Montreal had a special craft, making glass beads. The black beads brought Montreal most of its money. I invented a cheaper glaze to finish the beads. The beads were even more in demand. The town prospered. I built the bead factory. There was a workshop for men and one for women. Any person wanting honest work could always get a job in my factory. I gave beds to the hospital and built an old people's home. It was the first one in France. I built a new school. At first, people didn't trust me. They thought I was doing these things for my own gain. How could they know? I gave so much because so much had been given to me. In time, I earned everyone's trust. They even made me their mayor. Only one person didn't trust me. That person was Javert, the police inspector. His eyes were like ice whenever we met. I lived quietly. I didn't want Javert to learn the truth about me. I was an ex-convict, but worse, I had stolen from a child. Soon I would find out that Javert was like a hawk. When it came to the law, his eyes were sharp, and he never let his prey escape. One day I was out walking. The ground was softer from rain the day before. I saw a small crowd. They gathered around the horse cart. They parted when I arrived. A horse had broken its hind legs, and an old man was trapped under the cart. The man was Pere de Fauchelevent. He had never liked me. I think he was jealous. Once I had been a day laborer, as he was. Now I own the factory. Is help on the way? I asked. The loaded car pressed heavily on the poor man's chest. It helped. If help didn't arrive soon, he would be crushed. Yes, replied the man next to me. Someone has gone to get a jack from the blacksmith, but it'll take a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour? I cried. The Fauchelevent will be dead in that time. There's still room for a man to crawl under the car and lift it on his back. I'll give 5 francs to anyone with the muscle and the heart. No one spoke. I raised my offer to 10 francs, 20 francs. Still, no one came forward. Meanwhile, the cart was sinking deeper into the mud, was squeezing the life out of the Fauchelevent. Man would have to be as strong as an ox to lift that load, said Javert. I hadn't seen him in the crowd. He would risk getting crushed himself, he continued. I have only known one man who could lift the road like this on his back. I knew him when I was warden in the Toulon prison. Toulon? How long was it since I heard that name spoken? Memories of my years in prison rushed in upon me. Javert was watching me closely, but I couldn't let the Fauchelevent die. Suddenly the old man cried out, "It's crushing me, my ribs are breaking. For God's sake, do something." I stripped off my coat and crawled under the cart. The cart was low in the mud. I was almost flat on my stomach. I slipped again and again, trying to get a foothold. "Hurry, come out up there, Monsieur Madeleine," someone shouted. Fauchelevent himself cried out, "Go away, Monsieur Madeleine. I'm done for. Let me be, or you'll be killed too." But I finally had a foothold. I braced the cart's weight on my back and pushed with all my might. Slowly, the cart rose. At last, the mud cracked wheels came into view. Men from the crowd jumped in to help. The cart was soon out of the mud, and Fauchelevent was rescued. I got to my feet. Sweat poured down my face. I was drained. As I walked away, I could feel the eyes of the hawk upon my back. Fauchelevent's kneecap was broken. I bought his horse and cart. I found him work as a gardener in a convent in Paris. In this way, the old man became my friend. Chapter 3, Fantine. One day, Javert arrested a young woman for disturbing the peace. He gave her 6 months in prison. She had been living on the street in terrible poverty. Her name was Fantine. A rich young man had accused her of attacking him, but I had seen what happened from across the street. The man had put a handful of snow down the woman's back, and she had lashed out in anger. I entered Javert's office. Fantine turned and glared at me. "So you're the mayor, are you?" she said. Then she spat in my face in fury. She hated Monsieur Madeleine. She believed she had lost her job because of me, but I didn't know her story. The woman in charge of the workers in my factory, the learned that Fantine had a child but wasn't married. She fired her. "Inspector Javert, this woman is to go free," I said. Javert was stunned. "This woman has insulted a respectable citizen," he said. "I saw the whole thing from across the street," I replied. "The respectable citizen is at fault. She has insulted you too." "You're the mayor of this town," said Javert. "That's my affair," I said. "This woman will not serve a single day in prison." "But that's not right," said Javert. "Enough. Kindly leave your post." For a moment, Javert didn't know what to do. Then he bowed low and left the room. Fantine had followed the argument with interest and surprise. She wasn't angry anymore. "I will see to it that you have what money you need." I told her, "Your worries are over." This news was too much for the poor woman. She fainted at my feet. Her head burned with fever. I took Fantine to the factory's nursing station. Her fever raged all night, but by morning it had broken. "I'm feeling better," said Fantine. When I asked how she was, "I have slept well. I'm sure it was nothing serious. I only wish my daughter Cosette were here with me." Cosette lived with a family called Thénardier. They owned a tavern in Montfermeil, a town outside Paris. Fantine sent money each month for her daughter's care. "I left Paris poor," Fantine told me. "I wasn't married to Cosette's father, so I had no help from him. I wanted to return to my hometown, Montreal. There was a new factory, but what could I do with Cosette? The Thénardiers offered to take her until I was settled. They wanted 7 francs a month for her upkeep. At first, I was able to pay it. I had work in the factory. I even had money to buy new furniture. But then, Monsieur Thénardier demanded more. He wanted 20 francs, then 15. He always had a good reason. Cosette needed a wooden dress for winter. Cosette was sick, doctor's bills, and medicine put me behind in my payment. Things got worse when I lost my job, she continued. I had to get money any way I could. I sold my beautiful hair. I even sold my two front teeth. As you see, I owe Monsieur Thénardier so much money, I'm afraid Cosette may at this moment be living in the street. As Fantine finished her story, pain filled her eyes. Her face was thin, as white as the sheets she lay on. I will take care of everything. I told her, you don't have to worry. Fantine owed Thénardier 120 francs. I sent 300 and told him to use the rest to bring Cosette to me. But Thénardier wrote back asking for more money. This man was not the kind soul Fantine believed him to be. He was a crook. He thought he had found the goose that laid the golden eggs. I had to get Cosette away from him as soon as possible. Fantine's winter cough turned into pneumonia. One morning, the nurse took me aside. You better bring the child, she whispered. Her mother grows weaker every day. Fantine opened her eyes and asked for Cosette. I will get her myself if I have to. I wrote it down there. Fantine told me what to write, and then she signed it. The letter said, hand Cosette over to the priest, the person who brings you this letter. Everything I owe will be paid. I send you my regards. But my trip was not to be. The next day my dead and buried past would rise to haunt me, and my plan to get Cosette would be delayed. Chapter 4. I'm Jean Valjean. I was in my office finishing a few things before leaving to get Cosette. Javert was announced. Show him in, I said. When Javert entered, I did not look up. I couldn't forget how badly he had treated Fantine. Javert stood there for quite some time. I don't know how he looked. My eyes were on my paper. Finally, I put my pen down. Well, Javert, what is it? I asked. Monsieur Mayor, began Javert, I wish to speak with you of a serious matter. A rule had been broken. What rule? Someone in the lower ranks has shown disrespect for someone in the higher ranks, he replied. Who is the person? I asked. Myself, said Javert. You? I did not know what Javert was getting at, but I didn't trust him. And who's been treated with disrespect? You have. Monsieur Mayor. Now I was baffled. I stood up. Javel's eyes were lowered. I have come to ask you to dismiss me, he continued. My mouth was open, but I couldn't find words. Javert continued. You may say I can quit, but that wouldn't be enough. I must be punished. I must be dismissed. I must leave in disgrace. What in the world are you talking about? I asked. What have you done? I will explain. I was so angry with you 6 weeks ago over that woman that I reported you to the chief of police in Paris. Now I laughed. It was a mistake after all. You reported me? As what? The mayor who stepped on your toes and took a prisoner from you? No. As an ex-convict. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach, but Javert was still talking, staring at the floor. It came to me some time ago. You look like a prisoner I knew 20 years ago. You walk with a slight limp. As he did, you have his great physical strength. I saw that when you lifted the cart. I suspected you of being a man called Jean Valjean. I dropped back into my chair. I returned to my work. And what did the Paris police have to say? I asked, pretending not to be very interested. They said I was crazy, replied Javert. They told me the real Jean Valjean had been found. The sheet of paper fell from my hand. I looked hard into Javert's eyes. Really? He said without blinking. A man called Champmathieu has been arrested for stealing apples. When the prisoner was moved to Arras, an old inmate recognized him. He said he knew the man to be an ex-convict. He said he knew him in the Toulon prison. In Toulon, they found 2 more convicts who said that this Champmathieu is in fact Jean Valjean. He's the same age, the same build, and Looks like him. I recognize him myself when I went to see him. And what does this man say? I wanted to know. The Barjang is in a hopeless position, said Jabir. Oddly, he doesn't rant and rave as you'd expect. He acts as if he doesn't know what's going on. He says over and over, my name is Champ Matthew, and that's all I have to say. If he's indeed Zhang Barjang, it won't go well for him at the trial, continued Javert. Stealing apples is a boy's prank, but this man is an ex-convict. Then there is a matter of a boy he robbed. Trial was to be in Arras, a day's journey away. Javert would be going as a witness. The sentence will be passed tomorrow evening at the latest. Monsieur Mayor, I remind you that I must be dismissed. It was wrong for me to act as I did. I rose my feet. You deserve to go up in the world, not down. The offense is not so great. Stay in your present post. Monsieur Mayor, I cannot agree to that. In my life, I have punished people when they did wrong. It was then just a thing to do. Now I have done something wrong. You should punish me. Don't be kind to me, Monsieur Mayor. I don't believe in kindness. I believe in justice. This is a matter for me to decide, I said, and I have decided. Stay where you are. Bowing low, Jabir turned to leave. At the door, he paused. I will stay, Monsieur Mayor, until I have been replaced. Jabir left, and I was alone with my thoughts. It was a difficult choice. I knew what waited for me in prison. Long days and years of hardship, the ball and the chain dragging in my leg, a wooden board for a bed, the whip, if once so much as lifted an eyebrow. I knew what I would be going back to, but I also knew I couldn't let an innocent man go to prison in my place. I rented a horse and buggy, left for Arras in the early morning. I raced the horse the whole way and arrived in Arras just as Champ Mathieu took the stand. Because I was a mayor, I was seated at the front of the courtroom. I searched the room for Javert, but I couldn't find him. The accused stood in front of the judge. He twisted a grimy cap in his hand. He was frightened and confused. I recognized the three witnesses. They were men I knew years ago in Toulon. The names were the Brevet, Chenildieu, and Cochepaille. Each one told the court that the man before them was Zhang Barjang. Only Champ Matthew and I knew he was innocent. This man will soon be sent to prison for the rest of his life for crimes he didn't commit. I had to speak Brevet, Chenildieu, and Cochepaille. Look at me, I shouted. Don't you recognize me? Don't you know who I am? The courtroom was silent. I'm Zhang Baljang, I told the court. I am the man. Remember the suspenders you used to wear? They had stripes, do you remember? Start of surprise stared at me wide-eyed. And you have a bad scar on your right shoulder. You burnt it on a hot stove. It's the truth. It's Chenildieu. I turned to the Cochepaille. On your left elbow, Cochepaille, there's a tattoo in blue lettering. It reads 1st March 1815. The date of Napoleon's landing at Cannes. Pull up your sleeve to show us. Did as I asked. That was the tattoo, just as I had said. Now, do you believe that I am Zhang Valjean? He's innocent. I have things to do. The court knows who I am, where I live. You can come for me when you choose. To return to Fantine. The end.